Hey everybody, Karaoke here. Today I want to talk a little bit about finding a guild. So first off, why should you find a guild in order to do dungeons or other content? Well, I think there's a bunch of reasons, but primarily I look at three important ones. The first is to get some training and help learning the game. This is something I do with my guild all the time. I'll take new players on training runs for dungeons, and it dramatically shortens the amount of time necessary to learn the path. Here, look, I'll give you a little example from a training run that we did recently with some new dungeon runners.
The hell is that?
What you're going to do is jump up here on the console, right in the middle. And then you should get a little thing that says bypass security. Once you get up here, go ahead and hit that. Now this time you're going to do it by yourself. We're all just going to be here defending. When you finish, there's going to be some spawns that we'll kill quick. Then we're going to do it with 4 people up on the console. And that's going to be important because we need to start at the same time. If somebody screws up, then we'll get 3 hacks, and 1 plus 3 is 4, which is not 5, and we're going to get the worst possible security response at that point. Hopefully that gives you an idea of why having a guild that'll teach you things, being on voice comms, and kind of giving you real-time instruction as you do stuff can be very helpful. Now, in addition to that, I think there's other reasons to find a guild. I think that having a group of people that you kind of meet and know and give you that motivation to log in and play every day is really helpful. I know a lot of people in my guild have said, you know, I like the game, but to be honest, if it weren't for the guild, I probably just wouldn't log in. I would have stopped playing or switched to a different game. So if you really are trying to make a long-term Guild Wars 2 gaming career, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, if you're planning on playing for a while, a guild will give you a lot more motivation to log in and play the game every day. And also, I think you get a much more consistent playing experience if you're in a guild and play with them. When you're pugging dungeons and, you know, getting groups that way, you'll get good groups sometimes and really bad groups other times, and any given day it's a crapshoot as to whether or not you end up in a good group and have a good time. If you have a guild, on the other hand, you're going to have a much more consistent playing experience. You're going to know what to expect every day when you log in, and if it's something that you don't like, you can always leave the guild. I hate to lose members, but if people aren't having fun, I totally understand them leaving the guild and trying to find a different experience somewhere else. So all that said, I think we should talk about some ways that you can go about finding a guild. I get this question a fair bit from people, and I take it a lot more seriously than I think most other people do. That's probably the side effect of being a guild leader. But I think sometimes people are very quick to just jump into a guild and they don't take the time to really research or figure out whether that guild is a good fit. And I think that's bad, not just for you joining a guild that you don't like, but I think it's bad for the game. It's very hard to get the right people in and retain them over time. And the constant flow of people in and out of guilds that are bad fits, I think makes that whole thing a lot worse. And it leads a lot of people to just assume that guilds are they're a transient thing that you can never really get a great fit. And that's something you're just going to constantly be bouncing around forever. That's not how I look at guilds. I like to think of them as investing yourself into a group of other people, and if you look at it that way, it's worth taking a little extra time to find a good fit. Okay, so here's a few tips on trying to find a guild. First off, a lot of guilds will advertise either on the official Guild Wars 2 forums, or on the subreddit /r/guildrecruitment, or on separate websites like guildex. Those are all good places to go to find guilds, and it'll give you a chance to read a little bit about them. Now, a lot of people will just grab guilds that spam in mapchat. I tend to not think that mapchat spam is the best way to advertise your guild or to find a guild if you're looking. But if you question those folks a little bit, the recruiters on the other end, I think you can pretty clearly get an idea of whether that guild is the kind of guild for you and worth joining. Here's some questions that I would be asking recruiters if I were looking for a guild. First off, one of the easiest ones, what kind of players are you looking for? Any good guild is not looking for everybody out there. So if you're a recruiter, if you're talking to an officer or a leader, if they have a pretty clear answer for what kind of player the guild's looking for, I think that's a good sign. You can also say this another way, which might get you more information or maybe a more interesting answer. What kind of players are you not looking for? It's an interesting way to flip it, because like I could go in for my guild and say, oh, we're looking for like a social player or somebody like this. But if I'm asked what kind of players I'm not looking for, you tend to have to be a little bit more specific about people who won't fit into that guild. And that'll give you a really good idea of, first off, whether you're not going to fit in, but even more so, is this guild catering to the type of player that you are? Another good question to ask is, do you have any non-Guild Wars 2 activities? Any guild that takes the time for their players to meet up and do stuff outside of the game is probably going to be a little bit more cohesive than a guild that only works within Guild Wars 2. There's some additional questions you can ask if you're looking for a more social guild. For example, how many players do you know on a real name basis? This is an interesting one because that's the sort of thing that usually people take a little bit of time before they start to do with others. So that'll give you an idea of whether the people involved in the guild actually take the time to get to know people, or if it's just a guild full of random names that people do stuff together. Now, that's not a necessity for your guild. That's something that maybe that's important to you, maybe it's not. If you want to find out about stability, questions to ask are things like, how long has the guild leader been the leader of the guild? How long have the officers been officers? How long has the core group of the guild been together and known each other? If you find a guild that has a core group that's been together for, since the beginning of Guild Wars 2 or maybe even longer, there's a good chance they'll keep sticking together in the future. Now, that's not necessarily only a positive thing, because if you find that the core group is maybe a little clique and they don't let other people in, well, that can be a guild that's a little harder to get into. But still, I think it's useful to have a guild with a pretty strong core group that's been together for a year or maybe more. And then the last one, this one is a good way to see whether the guild is organized. Are there guild rules? And if so, are they written down somewhere where I can read them? A lot of guild leaders are lazy, let's be honest, and that's okay if you're just looking for some people to jump into a group and play with, but if you're really looking to spend a long time with a guild, you might want one where the leader is maybe a little bit organized and has taken the time to write down the rules for the guild and puts them in a spot where people can read them. That usually just means that that guild leader is paying enough attention that if a problem arises, they have an idea of how to handle it. They're not just randomly kicking people for doing stuff that they don't like. A couple other questions that are worth asking. Are there any requirements for the guild, like donations or fees? Do you require representation all of the time or doing certain activities? And is there an activity kick? So if I am gone for a few weeks, will I get kicked from the guild? Is there anything special that I have to do in order to not? So those are some great questions that you should be asking an officer or a leader if you're trying to join a guild. And if you're getting good answers to those, there's a good chance that the guild is at least organized enough and know what they're doing to not be a complete disaster. And on my end, as being a guild leader, if I see somebody who's asking all of these questions when they're trying to join, it gives me more confidence that this person isn't just trying to float in and out or, get a quick taste of things, that they're actually interested in joining the guild and being a part of it and participating in the long term. And I see that as a great thing. So that does it for today, everybody. Good luck with your search for a guild, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video.